Alright everybody, we are back for another fun video. So lately I've been watching a lot of a YouTuber named RetroBird, and I think his videos are really good. As the name implies, he's mostly into retro video games, but every once in a while he'll talk about modern games, and one of the problems that he often cites with modern games is the open worldness. And I used to have very strong opinions for open world, like very positive opinions. I would play a game, like latest example would probably be Kirby, the newest Kirby on Switch, how they didn't really go full on open world. It's kind of like a condensed Mario Odyssey, where you have a bunch of smaller levels. They're 3D, but like they're more 3D than Kirby 64, but not as 3D as Mario Odyssey. And I thought, oh man, could you imagine if the worlds were open world like Mario Odyssey? And basically, Mario Odyssey, I just mean like they drop you down in a kingdom and you're kind of free to go wherever you want. Like, yeah, there's a natural story progression, but you're free to like, oh, I want to capture this guy and see what I can do in this level with this guy. So that's kind of what I mean. But lately, I've been finding myself saying like, this is such a good game, even if it isn't open world. Like, maybe this game doesn't have to be open world. So I thought about doing a video over how my opinion on open world has changed, but I thought, well, let's kind of juxtapose what RetroBird's always talking about with these games are just filler, or, you know, again, not to put words in his mouth, you just have to go watch his videos, but just kind of, what if we look at what games have done open world perfectly, or at least close to perfect as a video game can get. So these are my opinions. If you know a game that you think has done open world really well, drop it down in the comments. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into 5 games I think did open world really great. We'll start with Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, one of the latest open world games that I've played. I actually prefer the more formulaic style of Zelda games, such as Ocarina of Time or Wind Waker. I think those two will always be my 2 favorite Zelda games. However, as far as open world goes, Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom are really solid. And I won't go into spoilers because they're open world. I've never actually... Well, I beat Breath of the Wild. I have not beat Tears of the Kingdom, mostly because I do the shrine hunting and do all the side quests and stuff like that before I actually go and beat the game. So it'll still be a while before I beat Tears of the Kingdom. But I really like the way that they're done. So the world is devastated and you're just dropped into the middle of it, and you have to piece together the lore and history of Hyrule, and that's just really exciting to me. Now, granted, the chest and other normal exploration rewards are not that enticing to me, because a lot of the time in Tears of the Kingdom or Breath of the Wild, inside the chest is going to be outfits, weapons that break, or stuff like arrows, you know, or seeds or whatever, you know, things that exhaust, I guess. So it's not actually super exciting for me. You're not looking, like the chests aren't going to be heart pieces or something like that, or weapons that don't break, right? So the big draw to Zelda and the open world games are how they handle both the explorations and the items. They give you access to all your runes and your gliders at the start of the game. Okay, so you get the glider very early. In Breath of the Wild, I think you get it right when you leave the tutorial plateau. And you get it in Tears of the Kingdom, again, after you leave the tutorial island. And then they give you all the runes pretty early. So long gone are the days of grinding out dungeons to get your next item so that you can move on to the next section of the map. This means you can literally go anywhere you want in the game. It's just a matter of how much health and or stamina you want before you start tracking down the story beats and the boss fights. To me, that's a huge plus for an open world game. There's very few places that are actually off limits. And to keep highlighting the pros of Breath of the Wild's open worldness is it's very simple. Like, yes, there's side quests, but that doesn't feel like they're bloating the game. And yes, there's combat and random encounters, but it doesn't feel like it slows down the pace of exploration. Honestly, I didn't value or appreciate this aspect of Breath of the Wild when it came out. I felt it was super shallow and not actually a grand adventure. Juxtapose that with Wind Waker, and Wind Waker feels epic. Breath of the Wild just felt empty. But you know, I respect the way that it cuts out all the fluff that most open world games suffer from. Next up is Sonic Frontiers. If you know me, you know that I do not like Sonic games, especially the old 2D games. They're just not for me. I'm not going to sit here and say they're bad games. They're just not for me. So, why do I have Frontiers as one of my perfect open world games? Well, the game is massive in scope, which can be a detriment to other games. There's very little in the way of NPCs, and the side quests are that rare blend of varied, yet repetitive. The game will shift between the 2D and 3D styles. So it bears repeating, why do I have Frontiers as a perfect open world game? Well, simply put, it's the atmosphere. Sonic blew up because it nailed the atmosphere of the 90s. It was all about being fast and having attitude. He knew why people liked playing Sonic games, and that's what they leaned into. This game figured out how to do speed. The use of the open world allowed them to capture that Sonic essence. It encouraged the developers to design the worlds and challenges to be large in scope. This way, Sonic's quickness and platforming skills were on display. I think this game shows off one of the factors that can separate a bad or even decent use of open worldness from a great one, and that's how the developers get the player to explore. Sonic's use of velocity and the epic scaling of the monsters and terrain made this feel like a true adventure. Alright, let's talk about maybe the best sandbox series of all time. Grand Theft Auto. Truly groundbreaking, but rarely duplicated. There's just nothing quite like it in the open world space. Every GTA game was massive in scope, but GTA 3 shook the gaming world like very few other games ever have. And in my opinion, GTA 4 took that and just made it into an unstoppable juggernaut. There were truly so many things to do in this game, from racing missions to heist missions to dating missions. The list goes on and on and on. Now there's two things that Grand Theft Auto series has always done right and has going for it as far as sandbox gaming goes. First, just like Breath of the Wild and Sonic Frontier, the method for which the player traverses the world. And it may come as a surprise, but for Grand Theft Auto, that method was, well, Grand Theft Autoing. Jacking a car from a defenseless, or in some instances maybe not so defenseless, NPC and driving away with the radio blasting was the soundtrack that defined so many childhoods. The second thing on its side, which I think it does better than the other two previous games, is that the world is alive. The NPCs are fleshed out and they actually matter. The environment is actively trying to kill you. From the police, gang members, armed civilians, trains, you are never safe. There's radio stations with music or news playing, there's an internet cafe, there's dates, there's consequences, and much more that help engross you into the world. Open world games just do not get any better than the Grand Theft Auto series. Recently, the series that has got the closest to emulating Grand Theft Auto is SpiderMan. They captured that lively city approach that prior only Grand Theft Auto had really been able to do. Joe Jonah Jameson pollutes the airwaves spewing anti-Spidey propaganda. The cops are desperately trying to slow down criminal activity. Everybody lives in fear of Kingpin hiding in the background. One of the strongest things Spider-Man has going for it is that it can lean into the IP itself. It has Mary Jane, it has Oscorp, it has the Sinister Six, it has Aunt May. So many established and beloved characters mesh and flow so well in the universe that Marvel and Spider-Man has spent the last 60 years weaving, and Insomniac perfectly captures how we all thought it would feel to swing through New York City as everybody's favorite friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Lastly is Fallout. Fallout New Vegas is my favorite open world game of all time. This time around, it takes all the good things I said about Breath of the Wild and many of the other games and turns it upside down. There's no fun way to explore. You won't find a glider, Sonic's insane use of speed, you won't be swinging from the airs, no. The worlds are not bright and vibrant. There's dread lurking down every street, bloodthirsty raiders set up camps along the deserted highways, radiation contaminates the once pure air, experimental monstrosities now stalk the bombarded hellscape. You must piece together the lore of the land. You will forge alliances with what's left of the living. You will level up your character through branching skill trees that allows for nearly unlimited replayability. It's one of the few open world games where I don't get tired or burned out of exploring every nook and cranny the world has to offer. I never feel betrayed by my own curiosity, and that is a must for open world gaming. So that's my list of some of the games I think do open world perfectly. And sure, there's plenty I left off, from Red Dead Redemption, Skyrim, The Witcher. I mean, the list can probably go on and on depending on what you've played. But for me, I do get burned out of a lot of open world games. It's just not as enticing or as exciting as it used to be. I loved being dropped into a world where there were no handlebars, there were no instructions. You just got dropped in and were told to explore. But so many games feel like they're fluff. I mean, one example, and this isn't necessarily an open world game, but it kind of emphasizes what I'm talking about. I sat down to play the original Animal Crossing, and I just got bored of it. Because, yes, the beautiful part about Animal Crossing is getting to know your villagers, but to me it was like, oh, Brenda lost her shoe. Oh, Gary lost his hat. Yeah, and I mean, this was 10 years ago, so I don't remember everything in detail, but you get what I'm saying. It's just, oh, go do this, go do that. And if that's what you're into, then Animal Crossing is the perfect game. But for someone like me, like, I mean, games are repetitive, so it's on the developers to find a way to make the gameplay loop fun. And for me, a lot of open world games can get bogged down by bad gameplay loops, I guess. Boring repetitiveness. So my findings seem to show that games that put an emphasis on making exploration fun while mixing in the world building elements tend to keep my interest as I'm playing. Nothing derails open games faster than monotony traveling or uninteresting worlds. So that is my opinion on 5 games that have really captured what it means to be open world. So if you haven't, check out Retrobird. He has a ton of great videos discussing video games. So personally, I like that. I've been diving through his back catalog. So let me know down below, what are some games you think are just really awesome open world games? You never get tired of playing them, and maybe I'll check them out. So thank you guys so much for watching this one. Peace.